Hi, within this lecture we're going to continue learning about functions and we're going to focus on getting an input and returning an output as we discussed before. So let me start by marking this down and give a heading here with hashes. Okay, so this will be hash hash input and return. Okay, so these are one of the most important reasons that we are using functions. So let me create a function here like hello programming this time rather than hello world. So all I have to do is just hit colon here and say print hello. But again, in another line, rather than saying print hello world, or rather than saying print world, I want to say a programming language. And I want to get that programming language input from the user. Okay? So I want to print out like hello Python or hello Java, but I want it to be given by user. So I can take an input using a function, right? All I have to do is just come here between the parentheses when I first define this function and write here whatever I want to take as an input. You can write anything you want because this will be a variable. Like you can write name, you can write your name until I will say name because it makes sense because we are asking for a name from user, right? So user will give us this name here. So it will be stored in a variable and we will use this variable here when we print out the result, right? So if I hit shift enter right now and if I call hello programming and open a parenthesis, now I have to give an input in here. If I don't give an input and hit shift enter, as you can see we got an error saying that this has a required positional argument. So we have to give it a name. So let's give Python for example and hit shift enter again, and as you can see we have this hello Python section. So let's say hello programming Java this time and we'll have this hello Java output. And what if I want to prevent this from crashing, right? Maybe user don't know what he or she is supposed to do and just give out an empty input. It will crash now, right? As it did in the previous example. But there is a way to overcome this problem, and this is a way to give an input with a default value. Okay, so when you create a function like hello programming, again, so I will call this hello program and I will just make this variable equal to Python. Okay, and this will be my default value, but it can be changed by user. So I will write exactly the same thing, print hello and print name, but now if I call this without an input like hello program parentheses and shift enter, now it will write down hello Python. Okay, but if I change the name or if I give an input right now, hello program Java for instance, now it will print out hello Java. So you can define some predefined default values to the input variables, and the user may change them afterwards when they were interacting with your functions. Okay, now you know how to get inputs from user, right? Now let's learn about returning outputs. So we talked about this return too much before, but we didn't see actually what it was. So let me create a sum function here where we'll sum some numbers. So I will get number 1 and number 2 from user, okay? And of course, I will sum them and show it to the user. So this will be like number 3 is now number 1 and number 2 combined, okay, summed. And then I will print out the result. So this is really simple, okay? So if I hit shift enter right now, and if I say sum, and say number 1 and number 2, so if I sum this, the result will be 13. So my math function is actually working. Let me try that with a negative number as well in order to make sure. So 10 minus 500, yeah, so it gives us the correct result, which is minus 490. So what is not working actually is that we're not getting an integer back from here. We're just seeing the result as a string, okay? So we just see it. We cannot do this that we used to do in here. We cannot assign this to another variable because it is not returning anything. It's just printing out something for us. What do I mean? Let me define another function here and call this summation this time. And actually, I think we have to change this to sum because sum is actually predefined function of Python, so we should not mess up with this. So let's rerun this with Shift Enter, and now let's create a summation function. And within here, within the summation, I will get number 1 and number 2 again. I will call this num1, num2, and let's call num3 and get 3 numbers at once. So within the summation function, I will sum up 3 numbers. But I will return this time num1 plus num2 plus num3. So what does return do? Let me show you. 10, 20, 30, and if I hit Shift Enter, now I get 60. Now this works pretty well too. So what is the difference between returning and just printing out the result? So let me do this. My result is summation, okay, 10, 20, 30 again, and if I call my result, I see the 60 because it's returning something, and in here in def sum we didn't return anything, we just printed out. So let me demonstrate this. My integer is now sum and 10, 20, okay, so it turns out 30, but if I call my integer, it won't return me anything, because if I call type my integer, I will see none type. So this is nothing actually. Because why? Because we are printing out the number, and when I called this sum, it just printed out the result, but it doesn't return anything like we do in here in summation. So it's just printing out like this hello world program, okay? So I cannot assign this to a variable. I'm just seeing the result, but I cannot assign this to a variable. So it is important for you to define what you will do with a function, okay? So if you're going to need the results later on, it is better for you to return the result and not just print that out. So let's move on to another example. Can we do like if statements in functions? Of course we can. We can do everything in functions. They are piece of code blocks. So let me do an example here like df control string, okay, and I will take a string as an input, like say s this time, okay, and I'm going to control this s, and if the first letter of this string equals to m, then I'm going to make this m capitalized, uppercase, okay? So there's a way to do that, right? Maybe pause the video and try to do it yourself. I hope you got it. All you have to do is just S0 and take the first letter out of that string and control if this S0 is equal to M, okay? So if this is actually M, then we're going to say print out MM. For right now, for just an example. Let's check this out. Control string, let's give it something else like Paris for instance, and that doesn't start with M. So if I do this, I won't get any print. Let's do this with Metallica for this time. Control string Metallica, and I got out MM. So this works. Now I can just do whatever I want. Like I can make this capitalized, I can print M manually, right? So try to do it on your own again. So let me copy and paste this in here. And if this S0 is equal to M, I want to capitalize this M, and actually printing out the big M won't work because this will give me only an output of capitalized M, right? I won't see the rest of the string. So what I want to do actually, not printing out this, but printing out S dot capitalized, because I know that string has this method. I have worked with this function or method before. So if I hit Shift Enter right now, and let's try this with control string again, and let's give it Metallica one more time, and we will get out the Metallica capitalized. Okay, so let's try with something else like Amsterdam this time, and we won't get anything in return. As you can see, functions have great tools to work with inputs and outputs, returning outputs. I suggest we stop here right now, and within the next lecture we're going to continue with advanced functions.